Okay, we are live at 11:05. Josh and I were holding down the fort. Everybody else,
yeah, gone.
They're usually gone anyway, but they're gone for the day. It's Christmas. Josh is trying to set me up with a Santa hat and all, but oh well, we didn't have one in makeup. On BC, you're watching Spirit Cars live at 11:05. Josh, the voice of Spirit Cars, behind the camera there. There he is, waving at you. We're going to recap a couple things. If you look back on our Facebook page, I think the last 2 days in a row, we were talking about a fuel regulator, and we were talking about gas tank, and the gauges are done, but here's the contraption. And this is about don't get frustrated. Just like if you're using an Edelbrock carburetor, I talked a little bit more in depth about it the other day, you need to have a fuel regulator. The way the alternator is mounted on top, generally we'll do it with the alternator mounted low mount. This looks fine. The customer put it this way. And like I said the other day, don't get frustrated when you can't find all the right fittings. We have a pile of fittings here, and I ordered fittings, and I still need a 90 to come down here, so this will connect in. I put a fuel filter up here. This is the regulator, and I put a gauge on here just because it's nice to know what you're dealing with, and then you can just dial it into what you want, 3 to 5 pounds, something like that, and you just adjust it by right here. Clean setup. There it is. Doesn't look bad. Do we have any? I have not run the fuel line yet, but we use aluminum fuel line.
Right there behind you on the wall. 3/8.
3/8, nice. I mean, it bends easy for as big as this is. You can just move it around. I like it, and you can either put a fitting on. Sometimes you just have to use a rubber hose between the two, but you can flare this and put a fitting on the end and use a compression fitting. Or you can, I would flare it a little bit, and you could put a rubber tube on it with a clamp. But it's nice to go along the frame with this. So we'll come along the back. Yesterday we were building a gas tank. That was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes.
So we got the gas tank built. Guess what? I knocked it off the wall. But so the gas tank's built. It's sitting in there. Again, this is a Spirit car. So we base things on what works for the Spirit car. It's a 1927. This is Kevin's car coming together. There's a flange, a tab on the side. Our frame is 3/16 thick, so what we'll do is we'll drill here and tap the frame. There'll be a bolt here and a bolt there. The floor actually extends past the seat. You could see that if you could see back there, but you can't. So the front of this is actually sitting on the floor of the car, and then mounted up there. We talked briefly about doing your fuel sending unit for the fuel gauge, and that was done yesterday. Rather than re-go over everything, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say make sure that the travel, cut your float so that the travel is full down and full up when you mount it. That's important if you want a true reading, so that empty is empty and full is full. Otherwise you may get a false reading. Today we're going to talk about a windshield and frustration. Don't get frustrated. Things that we're really good at, we like to do more than the things that we don't know how to do. We used to buy our glass from a company called North Arkansas Glass, and we bought it from them. Jack bought a car from us, the guy that owned it, and he retired and just closed the company down, and we bought his inventory. And I didn't know anything about it. He gave me, and Jack probably hadn't cut glass himself for 20 years, or even did it in the beginning, but so he gave me a 5-minute lesson on how to cut glass, and so I got a concept, so I'm kind of self-taught. And it works for us. There's another glass company in town here, Mountain Home Glass. They do a great job, but it's a real hassle to go all the way to town and come back, and when we're in flipping, you don't have a lot of options. So when we first got this, Josh can tell you, if I had to cut a piece of glass, I was stressed. I mean, the kind of stressed where you're working and all of a sudden you're sweating and it's going on, and I couldn't pull a line or I'd crack it, and I mean, I had a pretty severe learning curve, but now I've been doing it. I don't know how long we've been cutting our own glass. A couple of years now, haven't we?
Yeah.
So in a sense, you could say I'm skilled at that. I could probably go get a job at a glass company. But the point of all that is, it's a learning process. So don't get frustrated if someone else can do it and you can't. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it may take you a little bit longer. You may have to think about it a little bit longer. Enjoy building your car. There's certain areas of it that I'm better at than others, although after both necessity and age, I've probably done every process on the car more than once. But even if it's your first build, you can get it done. It just may take a little longer, and don't get frustrated. Now, I said all that to say, this is an area of a car, even though I've done it a lot of times, it's still, you don't have enough hands, you don't have enough arms. It's just like one of those deals. But if I ever look at a car, in the context of judging it, not that I like to judge cars, but I like to look at quality, there's a lot of guys that can do body work well and can paint well. But I was talking to Eddie, our upholstery guy, this morning, I said, upholstery guy, he's like the finished carpenter. You can have a rough looking house, but that finished carpenter comes in, it looks tight and clean, and upholstery's that way. If you got a clean upholstery job, it makes the car. If I'm going to look at a car for quality, especially a fiberglass car, there's so many areas that, well, we're standing right here. Not to pick apart another company, but another company manufactured this, and the way they had their glass, this is Larry T's car, and one of the main reasons he brought it to us to fix was we just redid the entire door just so we could get this aluminum channel in here, so we could put the felt in there, so when that glass comes up in here, you've got a channel that's tight against clean paint, and that glass is going to be tight and clean in there. I'll look at a car, especially on a fiberglass car, how does the glass fit? How does it look? Couple things on glass. I've already cut this. An outside curve isn't as bad. I mean, I can cut that line, and this is all laminate glass, safety glass, which means it's got plastic in between it. I've sanded, I don't know, how well can you see this here? You can see the two different. I just quickly sanded it. Now, I'm not going to run my hand on this edge, but on this particular window, this is going to get a rubber that goes on the bottom. This will go on there, and you'll have this will fit against the cowl of the car. The glass goes like this. And I just cut this morning. I'm going to sand it some more. But if you look on the top here, now this, I'll run my hand back and forth. I started sanding it, but you can still see in some areas, you see the shiny spots? That's the two different glasses. One is higher than the other. And the way to cut, and we did do a series on cutting glass a while back. It's quite a while back. Safety glass is a little bit more complicated to cut. It's a lot more complicated to cut than just a regular glass, because you've got to score one side, kind of get that to open a little bit. You got to turn it over, and then you need to score exactly on top of your other score, and then break it. And with this plastic in the middle, you've got to kind of bend it down and heat it. Some people use like a lighter fluid or an acetone to put in there and light it on fire and heat it and bend it that way. I have a heat gun that actually probably the glass industry doesn't do, because I come from that industry. It works really well. It's a plastic welding heat gun, and I can do it with that. So the outside curve is a little easier because when you break it, it's got some room to maneuver. But you got to be careful you don't, I call it clamshells. If you're pushing the top glass down into the bottom glass, you can chip the edge of it. Not to mention you can run a crack through it, and then you might as well start over. You can always sand out a clamshell. The inside curves, much more difficult because there's nowhere, I mean, there's no give on it, so you've just got to work it and be careful. Enough on glass. we want to put a windshield on this 23 or 27. We're using short windshield posts. There's a taller post that we use when we do a top. Call these smoothie posts. And the way they come, it's just an aluminum, cast aluminum. There's no holes in it. There's no threads in it. It's like, here it is. You figure it out. And it does have a cap on it. That cap comes off, and the glass will slide in there. So we've got to get it to fit. I mean, so on our car here, I mean, there it goes. It kind of fits there, and you got this one kind of fits here, but how in the world? You still got to get it. What angle do you want to be on, and all that. So we have a little bit of an advantage in that we've made this pattern, and this pattern is wood. So what I'll do is I'll take and put it on the pattern. I'll tape it on, and when I have the wood taped onto my windshield posts, I can take and set it on the car where it goes. So I got it where it goes on the car. I've got a pattern that I know is going to fit. Now, you're not going to have that, and every car is going to be a little different. A Spirit car may not. Do we actually offer the glass for this? It's just too hard for us to ship. If you buy a...
Well, it's that, but you got to build a huge box for that little piece of glass. By the time you put the 2x4s to do it, and you bubble wrap it, and you know, you're probably looking I think the last windshield we shipped for a guy that he just wanted it, and it was the time we added the weight of the box, it was like $70 for shipping.
Okay, so if you happen to buy one of our 27s and you happen to use the smoothie short posts and you want to put the glass in it, just call Josh, and you'll recognize his voice on the phone because he's the voice of Spirit Cars, and we can send you this pattern, not in wood, but we'll just make it out of paper, and we can send that to you, and it would make it that much easier. So anyway, we got our wood pattern, make the wood pattern, get the things on it, tape these on, put it down to where you go. From the inside of the car, I'll take and drill from the inside of the car. You can see the two holes here. And once I've done that, I basically make a little mark here. I drill and I tap. So these are drilled and tapped holes here that I can now fit up and put my windshield in. Now if you look at this windshield, it's beveled to the outside. If it was beveled this way, I couldn't slide it in, but these caps will come off of here. There's just a screw on top, the cap will come off, and you can slide it in. You could put a vinyl piece in there or something like that to hold it, but I just don't suggest that. If it moves out some, once you get it fitting where you want it, mask this off with some 3/4 tape on these lines and urethane that baby in there. Wipe it with your finger smooth on the edge and you get a nice, quarter round. Then once it dries, take a razor blade, cut a smooth line on your glass, and you can always just cut it off with the glass on that. It's the easiest to do it that way. You could also mask your glass, but over the years I found it easier to just cut a straight line with the razor blade and cut it off. Although I always, if I'm going to be on the paint side, whether it be on this piece here, I'll mask it with tape, or this glass will be from the inside on this one. I'll mask this off with tape right along here after it's painted. So we got our windshield posts. I won't really tighten these down all the way. I want them to be able to have a little bit of play into them. Again, we're going to have this piece will be attached to the bottom of the glass, and when it sits down, you can see that piece will just sit down there and really fill the gap. So, I mean, obviously we want to have the glass as close to that arch as we can, but say it's off a 1/16 or an inch or so, you'll never see that with this rubber down on it. Something I've done that I really like, it's just a piece of foam. that I went into Eddie's shop, I grabbed some upholstery glue, sprayed the backside of the post, sprayed the backside of this foam, put it on there, took a razor blade, trimmed it off. So I've actually got a gasket that's built onto this now, and I don't have to worry about trying to fit it while I'm holding it up there. And and it's being foam, it'll press into there and it'll work out really nice. So I would have done some of this installing while you were watching, but we are live with no editing, and there's a lot of potential to scratch. I mean, when I put this glass in, I will tape off the top of this, so if there's an oops, I don't want it to oops right into the paint. It can sit on top of some tape and not hurt it at all. And it just takes a little bit of focus. But if you can get your glass looking really good on a car, I mean, it's those kind of things that put you over the top. I'm not a big going to a car show to win the trophy. It's all about the fellowship as far as I'm concerned. And especially after we've built, I couldn't even tell you how many cars we've built. Not everybody can win. And what it does come down to is it takes a lot of money to build a really, really, really nice cars. The days of Barris and Roth and all of them, they built way cool cars. But if you looked at the quality of their cars versus an average car at an average car show now, we have come a long way in the last 30 years. Excellent builders. You home builders are excellent builders. I am amazed every time I go to a show. But I tell you what, I don't judge your car, but if I do like to look at the quality, and we are craftsmen, one of the things I'll look at is what does your glass look like, especially on a glass car around the window, because since it is one of the harder areas, the areas that I don't even like to do, it's one of the areas that we focus the most of our time on and put the most energy in trying to make it right. And now I don't sweat anymore when I cut glass. Matter of fact, I kind of enjoy glass. After cutting I don't know how many and wasting I don't know how much glass, I don't even want to think about that. I'm not going to knock on wood and I'm not going to brag, but I haven't broke a piece of glass for a long time. That's just a matter of honing your trade. And, so you don't do it every day. Don't think you have to do it as fast as somebody that does. For Christmas time, this is it. You're going to go home. Got your meals planned. I think, man, tomorrow night, I think we're having pheasant. No, tomorrow night we're doing some deer steaks. And then Christmas Day, we're going to have pheasant, and I don't know what else, but I'm looking forward to that. Coffee break contemplations, or do we want to pass it on? What do you think?
Coffee.
Coffee, all right. Is it going to have a good one?
I don't know.
Yeah. You want to pick one today?
No.
You just pick me one. Pick me one. Just pick point somewhere. Okay, we got that one. Let's see what Josh come up with.
Better get your glasses.
I need to, but I think this is good. All right. Buddy mine, Ernie, Hot Rod Man, wrote these little quick sayings. Simply giving a person a diploma does not make them useful to society, nor does paying them a very large salary. I'm not sure how Christmassy is, but yes, we are in the trades. We're in the trades here, and be proud of it. Just because you don't have an office job, maybe, or maybe you do have an office job, and you get to go in your garage and build something. There's just something about building something that I like. So we appreciate you. Thanks. It's been a great year, and have a Merry Christmas.